everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Good morning, Rush Nation. Here we are back with the Fantasy Football Bible, Week 9, Part 1. I'm going to cover Thursday Night Football. I'm going to cover the early slate. This is pre-recorded. This is recorded around Wednesday afternoon. So if you hear something and think, hang on a minute, that's been ruled out or there's been a trade, then that is why. But I'm hoping to get this up to date in plenty of time for you to set your lineups. And also, with it being half-term week, it's a little bit different to my usual schedule. So trying to get all of this done and in. Right, time to get started. Let's look at the schedule and let's start with Thursday Night Football. And we have the Jets taking on the Texans. The Jets, once again, by the bookies, are favored by 1.5 with the over-under set at 42. It's an absolute disgrace that every single week they are set as favorites. They were a 7-point favorite against New England last week, and I went, I'm not buying it. And I'm not buying this. I know the Texans have got injuries. I know they're banged up. I know the Jets D is good. I'm not having the Jets as 1.5 point favorites. You cannot. You got a team of 6-2, and you got a team of 2-6, and you've got the 2-6 team favored by 1.5. It's the Aaron Rodgers effect. I'm not buying it. I expect the Texans to win this game. I expect the Texans. I know it's going to be tough. I know that they've got injuries. We've lost Stephon Diggs for the year. There's no Nico Collins. But John Menchie's no slouch. They have got other receivers. They've got Hutchinson there. And Tank Dell is going to be a big, big threat in this game. They also have Joe Mixon. So I'm not having the Jets here as favorites in this one. Give me the Texans. I expect them to win this, and I expect them to win it fairly comfortably, but I do like the line at 42 seems to make a bit of sense. I do expect this to be quite a defensive performance, and so as a result, I actually don't want to start either of these quarterbacks this week. Aaron Rodgers is at 24, CJ Stroud is at 27. I'm fading both of these quarterbacks, but I love Joe Mixon this week. I think they're going to get ahead, and I think they're just going to feed Joe Mixon. He is my running back 2 this week. I think he's going to absolutely pound the rock this week, and he's going to have one of his best weeks ever. Breece Hall is my running back 13. No need to start Braden Allen. He's not going to have a big role in this one, in my opinion. Moving on to the wide receivers here. Garrett Wilson is my highest ranked receiver. I still think he will see the targets as Devontae Adams is getting up to speed. He's my wide receiver 15. Tank Dell is my wide receiver 17. Devontae Adams is my wide receiver 24. They're the only 3 I feel comfortable starting. John Menchie is at 51. He's a bit of a wild card. He could go off. He might not go off. I'm just fading it and going on the air and erring on that side of caution. But if you want to take the risk, there are definitely worse options you could take the risk on this week than him. Dalton Schultz is my tight end 14. I do think he could see an uplift of targets, but I need to kind of see that first before I feel pretty good about moving him up in my ranks. So he's at 14 this week. Tyler Conklin is at 20. I thought that role would start to expand, but we're bringing in Devontae Adams. The targets aren't there to go around. The Jets are my DST 4 this week. The Houston Texans are my DST 14. And the kickers, I feel pretty good about starting Keami Fairbairn as always. He's my kicker 6. Don't need to start Greg Sirline. He's all the way down at 27. Moving on to the early slate, and we've got one of the, I think it is the lowest scoring game on the slate, and it is the Titans versus the Patriots. And the Titans are favored by 3.5. The Patriots are winning games. I don't quite understand the line here, and I guess it's probably to do with Drake May not playing. I think if Drake May wasn't playing, then there would be a case that, or if Drake May was playing, there could be a case this could go the other way. If Drake May doesn't play, and at the moment in my rankings, I don't have him as playing, then I can see the Titans being favorites. But this could be a really, really ugly game of football because we could be having Mason Rudolph against Jacoby Brissett. And that's just ugly. That's not something that anybody wants. The over-under set at 38. You could probably bet the under in this game. If they're the two quarterbacks there, this could be a really, really low-scoring game. And both teams might end up in the low teens here. When it comes to the running backs here, Tony Pollard is at 19. Ramondre Stevenson is at 26. They're probably the best this is going to get out of this game from a fantasy perspective. Although I do have Calvin Ridley at 21. I think this is a good matchup for him, but I'm not starting anyone else in this game. They're literally the only targets I'm interested in are those two running backs and Calvin Ridley. If you want a touchdown bet, Hunter Henry is a desperation play. That kind of makes sense. And then the only other options I'm starting here are the DSTs. I have the Patriots at 8 and the Tennessee Titans at 10. And there could be an argument to start Nick Folk, but he is at 18. I wouldn't get too cute. So the less said about this game, the better. I think it's a low-scoring game. I don't really get the 3.5-point line. I guess there's no confidence in Jacoby Brissett. I think if you get noise that Drake May comes in, there might be a big change in my rankings to some of the wide receivers. But if not, then I'm fading everything here. Let's move on to the Browns versus the Chargers. The Chargers are favored by 2. The over-under 41.5. And I think with Jameis Winston in that offense, that under looks a little soft. I have them baking some more points there. I do think with Jameis Winston coming in, this is definitely a different game to the one we could have got a couple of weeks ago. So I actually really like Jameis Winston this week. I know that's a really good defense that Jim Harbaugh is coaching up there, but I still have Jameis Winston as my quarterback 9 this week. I actually think he's got some really good upside. So I'm a big fan of him this week, pulling up some points and uplifting some of the team here. Justin Herbert is my quarterback 23. We know that they focus on the run, and they will get nasty on the run. It's quite hard to run against the Browns. I do think that the Chargers, because I think they're probably better coached, will win this game, but I actually do think this will be close, and I like the line at 2. Looking at the running backs here, J.K. Dobbins is my running back 11. I've seen him in ranks so much higher, but I think for me, it's pretty hard to put him any higher than that, given the fact that they are pretty difficult to run against Cleveland. Nick Chubb is my running back 27 this week. Kenami Vidal is my running back 42. Moving on to the wide receivers in this game. And the top-ranked wide receiver is Lang McConkey. I think he's at 19. Cedric Tillman is at 27. I think both of those are start plays. You can feel pretty comfortable starting those. As well with flex territory, Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore. I think there is room for these 3 wide receivers to score points. The worry is who is going to be the lead guy. They can all kind of cannibalize each other. So, but if someone does break away, it could also lead to one of these being faded in the dust. So this is a moving situation we need to keep an eye on. I've kind of hedged and put all 3 pretty close together. Quentin Johnston, not for me this week. I think this is a tough matchup. So I'd be sticking to just Lad McConkey. I really like David Njoku this week. He found the end zone last week. I think he'll find the end zone again this week. He is my tight end 4. I think he will get a good amount of volume. And then moving on to the defenses here. And I have the Chargers at 3 because I think they can get some turnovers here off Jameis Winston. The Cleveland Browns I have at 17. The one thing that the Chargers have not done is cough the football up all that often. Cameron Dicker is at 10. Feel pretty good having him here. And then also there is a spot for Dustin Hopkins. I have him at 24 currently, but to be honest, I could see him as like an outside punt of really increasing in recent weeks. So yeah, keep an eye on him. That's for sure. This is going to be a really difficult game. Panthers at Saints. Saints are favored by 7, over under 43.5. And we're going on the fact that we think David Carr is going to be good to go this week. And I think if he is, then this looks pretty good. David Carr is going to elevate this offense. It's been pretty dire without him. So I do think you can get some value this week out of him. He is my quarterback 17. As for the Panthers, I'm expecting this to be potentially a Bryce Young week. So I have him at quarterback 29. If things change, we'll definitely keep you posted. As for the running backs here, Alvin Kamara is my running back one. I think with Derek Carr there, getting a lot more passes in this offense to him, he's going to really eat this week, and I expect him to put in a top performance. Chuba Hubbard is my running back 17. I expect him to keep the majority of the carries, even with Jonathan Brooks coming back. I don't think Jonathan Brooks is going to have a big role in this game if he does even feature at all. As for the wide receivers in this one, Chris Olave is my leading wide receiver. He is at 18, and then I'm not playing anyone else in this game. I need to see who really comes out of this. I think if Andy Dalton was here, I would elevate Adam Thielen a little bit more, but I can't do that just yet, or Anne Leggett. So I'm just fading everyone here. And Tommy Tremble coming back means that Jatavian Sanders is just not a thing anymore. So really, the only tight end option is Taysom Hill. I actually think Taysom Hill is going to go wild this week. I do expect him to get in the end zone. I do expect him to get involved more as they take some of the weight and pressure off Derek Carr now that he is healthy as well. So I would definitely be playing Taysom Hill this week. And then you've got the New Orleans Saints. They are my DST1. I feel pretty good about them. But I do have Blake Grupe a little bit lower down. I do think that they'll just convert touchdowns, and there won't be many field goal duties for Blake Grupe. So as for Carolina, really, other than Chuba Hubbard, there is just no one to even consider starting this week. Next is Bills versus Dolphins divisional matchup. Bills favored by 6, over under 49.5. Should be a really, really good game this. And I think really, if I look at this, I think 6 is a little harsh on the Dolphins. I know that their record is not great, but obviously we know why that is with no Tua, and they've been struggling at quarterback. With Tua back, I do expect them to be a little bit more competitive. I do expect the Bills to control this game and win it. I don't know if it's a 6-point game, but I do feel confident that they will kind of get into the lead and they'll stay ahead and manage this game out, like they have done quite a few times this season. Josh Allen is my quarterback 4 this week. 2 I have down at 21. I just think this could be a really tough outing for him as he's trying to chase the game against Buffalo. James Cook is my running back 14. Devon Achane, my running back 16. I have Raheem Mostert down at 37. I'm worried about the volume, but he always carries a touchdown threat. So if you're looking to gamble, he's not a bad gamble piece this week. I do like Tyreek Hill. He's at my wide receiver 8. Khalil Shakir is my leading wide receiver 32 for the Bills. Then I have Jalen Waddles at 36. Keon Coleman is at 40. This could be a decent week for Keon Coleman. Could be a decent matchup. I have Amari Cooper at 47. I still think he's being bedded in. It's going to take a bit of time for him to get up to speed with the playbook. So another couple of weeks before we see the taps unleashed there. Johnny Smith is my tight end 9. Dalton Kincaid, my tight end 12. Both of these are starting options in this one. I do think that they're going to have to utilize Johnny Smith to get down the field and get some extra usage out of him this week. I do like the Bills DST. They're just outside my top 12 at 13. Feel pretty good about them, but I do have the Miami Dolphins last. They're not generating the plays that we would expect from a Dolphins defense that we've seen in the past. And then it comes to kickers, and Tyler Bass is at 15. I think it's going to be slightly difficult for him, but I do expect lots of extra points, but I don't know how many field goal opportunities there's going to be for him. Moving on to probably the biggest scoring game of the week by Vegas lines. It's the Falcons versus the Cowboys. Falcons favored by 2.5. The over-under set at 52. This is going to be a big game in terms of points. I actually think, for me, that the Falcons will win this by more than 2.5. I haven't seen anything out of the Cowboys that makes me think they'll live with them in a shootout, and I do think it will be a shootout. This could be one of those games that both teams could get to 30 points. But I think definitely the Falcons will get to 30 points. I'm not so sure that I think that the Cowboys will, and I think that'll be the difference. So I expect Kirk Cousins and company to really come in and really light up against this pretty poor Dallas Cowboys D. So I have Kirk Cousins at 6. I have Dak Prescott at 16. I just don't trust him at the moment. I don't know if it's him. I don't know if it's the offensive scheme. Is it 6 of one, half a dozen of the other? I'm not entirely sure. But what I am sure of is it's just not working. They're not committed to the run. They're not committed to doing anything different. And a lot of what they've done is what we've seen on tape over the last couple of years. It's very stale. It's very easy to cover against. And I think that comes down to coaching. But Dak needs to execute better. Maybe it's a weapons thing. He doesn't have enough, he feels. but I do feel like he needs to deliver a little bit better, maybe call some audibles at the line, maybe try and do something a little bit different this week if they want to try and live with the Falcons. Moving on to the wide receivers here, Bijan Robinson is my running backs here is my running back 8. Rico Dowdle's at 30. Tyler Algier is at 32. I'd like to see Dowdle get more touches. I'd love to see him be a consistent running back too, but I just don't think McCarthy is committed to the run here. And they've got Dalvin Cook now that just convolutes things even more, which I don't think was necessary here. CeeDee Lamb is my wide receiver 1 this week. I think as a desperation play, he's going to have to make some big plays if they want to live with the Falcons. Drake London is my wide receiver 7. Darnell Mooney is my wide receiver 22. Jalen Tolbert's at 45. He's a half-decent flex play. I just worry if he's got all the volume there to get to where we need to get to. Moving on to the tight ends here. Jake Ferguson is at 8. And Kyle Pitts is at 7, so right next to each other. That's why I couldn't see him. So yeah, both starting tight ends here. Very, very possible. I'm not starting either DST in this one, but you can start these kickers. They're 1 and 2 in my ranks. Brandon Aubrey is at 1. Young Ho Koo is at 2. Moving on to the Ravens versus the Broncos. Ravens are favored by 9, over under 45.5. I know that the Ravens lost to the Browns last week. I still think for me, they are probably the best team in football. I feel pretty good about them really firing it up, and they're really good at coming back from a loss. Lamar Jackson is my quarterback 3 this week. Bo Nix is actually my quarterback 7. You can pass on this D, and you can get good points. And I think with that rushing floor, he is definitely in line for a top 7 finish this week. The running backs here, I have Derrick Henry at 6. I have Javonte Williams just outside the RB2 range. He is at 29 this week. Moving on to those wide receivers. And as I said in the starts and sits yesterday, I'm sitting Deontay Johnson. It's just too early. We've seen it already this season. New wide receivers don't necessarily get on straight away. They need to learn the playbook, get the rhythm and the timing. They wouldn't have had much time to practice. So my leading wide receiver in this game is Courtland Sutton. He is at 29. Zay Flowers is at 31. Deontay Johnson is all the way down at 61. So I'm just sticking with those two receivers here. Do watch Zay Flowers, though, for the health reasons. But he will get a bit of a dip this week, I think, because of the additional work that Deontay Johnson will bring from a snap perspective, not necessarily a target perspective. As for these tight ends here, Mark Andrews is at 18. I'm not starting any of the tight ends in this game. I'm staying pretty well clear of them, as well as also I'm staying clear of the defenses. I don't like either of them too much this week, except for the Baltimore Ravens. They are at 2. I did trick you there. The Baltimore Ravens, I do think that they will get some turnovers off Bo Nix and company. Kickers, Baltimore, Justin Tucker is at 7, so you could definitely start him, but no need to start Will Lutz. He's down at 17 this week. Moving on to Bengals and Raiders. Bengals favored by 7. Not a big surprise there. Over under 46.5. Also not a big surprise. I guess the only thing is, can the Raiders score enough points to get this to 47 points? I think they can. I could see this being, a 30 points to I can see the Bengals putting up 30 points. So I can definitely see that happening. And I think they will. As much as the Raiders play hard, I think you are looking at this and thinking this is a good matchup for them and for Joe Burrow, which is why he's my quarterback 5 this week. I've Gardner Minshew all the way down at 28, not expecting too much out of the Raiders offense this week. Moving on to the running backs, Chase Brown is in running back 2 territory. He's at 22. Alexander Mattison is at 25. Zach Moss is at 33. I'll be honest, I'd sit Zach Moss. The volume is not there to sustain him. Moving on to the wide receivers, I have Jamar Chase at 5, T. Higgins at 14, and Jacoby Myers at wide receiver 28. They're the only 3 I'd be interested in starting in this game. Moving to the tight ends, I have Brock Bowers, not at tight end 1 like I have done for the last 2 weeks. He is my tight end 2, but definitely startable, more than startable as tight end 2. He should be in line for a good week. And I do like the Cincinnati Bengals D this week. They are at 5. So definitely fire them up off your waivers and get them in your lineups. And then as well, Evan McPherson is kicker 9. He should be in for a decent week. Moving on to the last game of this window, it's the Giants versus the Commanders divisional matchup. The Commanders are favored by 3.5, over and under 43.5. I will take the over, and I will take the Commanders by more than 3.5. I think that this is a really, really big game from the division, but I just think the Commanders have got far too much, and I think that line is soft. I think that the Commanders will beat the Giants by more than 3.5. I think the Giants D plays hard, but I don't think they've got quite enough to stop Jaden Daniels and company coming in and really running riot here. So I expect the over to be hit, and I expect the Commanders to win very comfortably, probably by more than 7. So, and that's reflected in my ranks. I have Jaden Daniels as my tight end 1. I have Daniel Jones as a big sit candidate. He's at 22. Just don't like him this week. He might get some rushing yards, but to be honest, I just don't expect him to pass too well on this Washington defense. I'm staying well clear. Brian Robinson is my running back 20. Tyrone Tracy is my running back 23. Austin Eckler is my running back 35. I don't think this is the matchup for him. Those New York linebackers are pretty decent, and that will restrict him in his yards after the catch. And then Devin Singletary's down at 38. I was tempted to move him down even lower than that. I'm definitely not putting him anywhere near a lineup unless Tyrone Tracy is not good to go. At this point, I think he will be, but that is definitely one to keep an eye on. Moving on to the receivers in this game, Malik Neighbors is at 6. He's going to be a heavy volume hog here. I have Terry McLaurin at 13. I think he could be in line one of his best weeks of the season. He matched up well against the Giants. He should do quite well this week. I have Wandale Robinson as a volume target at 42. I have Darius Slayton at 43. As they try and chase the game, he could definitely get a couple of big catches late on in garbage time. As for the tight ends here, Zach Ertz is potentially playable, but I have him down at 15. Not necessarily one I love, but he's a pretty safe floor guy. He's not going to hurt you in that slot. The Washington Commanders are my DST 7 this week, so you can feel pretty comfortable firing them up. And then Austin Seibert is my kicker 3. Don't need to worry about the Giants and Greg Joseph. He's all the way down at 28. That's going to do it for the Fantasy Bible Part 1. We will be back tomorrow to cover Part 2. But good luck this week. Keep an eye on the news. We'll be back with a flagship show as well. The flagship show could have already gone out by the time we've recorded it. Kind of a bit of flux with a bit of illness on Stocks' side, so we're seeing what happens. But I'm hoping it'll be Thursday night, which will be tonight when you listen to this. But until then, Rush Nation, good luck this week. It is week 9. Not many weeks left of the fantasy football regular season. Get those W's. Let's get those ships to the harbor. And don't forget, as always, keep rushing.